Good evening and welcome to the Atlanta Autism Consortium's initial free educational outreach program for 2026, Neurodiverse Couples, Relationships, and Child Rearing. My name is Michael Morrier and I'm the Program Committee Chair with the Atlanta Autism Consortium Board of Directors. The AAC is a nonprofit organization dedicated to creating collaboration and conversations throughout the Metro Atlanta autism community and beyond. Throughout the year, we host free educational programs just like this on a wide variety of topics. The entire AAC Board of Directors are so glad that you've joined us tonight. Before we get started, just a few brief housekeeping notes. Please note that as an attendee, your microphone and camera will remain muted, but you can ask questions you have throughout the program in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll be saving all questions for our Q&A portion of our presentation in order for the presenters to provide you with all the material that they've prepared. Additionally, this session is being recorded and will be posted on the AAC's YouTube channel in a few weeks. We will send out notification when it's available, as well as any additional materials and contact information for our panelists. The information will be sent to the email address you used when registering for tonight's program. Tonight's panel will be moderated by Ms. Cheryl Rhodes and AAC board member Dr. Amanda Platner. The panel is made up of two terrific couples who are volunteering to share their lived experiences on relationships and child rearing within neurodiverse couples. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Amanda Platner, who's going to start off this great program. So good evening, Amanda, and you can go forward.
Thank you so much, Michael. And thanks everyone for being here. We are so excited to bring this to you. We had these amazing couples join us for a program last year, and there was so many requests for them to come back. So we are so grateful that they were willing to come back and do a part 2 with us here. And don't worry if you missed part 1, that's okay. But we're really grateful to have them. So thank you to our amazing couples for being here. I'm Amanda Platner. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm a board member of the Atlanta Autism Consortium, and I'm the director of psychology intervention services at the Emory Autism Center, where I work with people across the lifespan in both assessment and intervention. And I also have recently, over the past 5 years or so, developed an expertise or interest in working with neurodiverse couples. So that brought me here tonight. I want to introduce Cheryl, who's going to speak to us a little bit briefly, just kind of about some of the background around the work that we do with neurodiverse couples. And then I'll introduce our couples. Cheryl will, like I said, she'll give us a little bit of didactic information, and then we're going to hear from the couples for the majority of the time. I have some questions for them. If y'all have questions, you're welcome to put them into the chat, and if we get to them, we'll be happy to answer them, and if not, we can always pass them along to our couples to see if they are able to answer afterwards. All right, so Cheryl Rhodes is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified neurodiverse couples coach, and autism services consultant. She has over 40 years experience supporting children and adults with autism and related developmental disabilities and their families through clinical care, research, training, and advocacy. Cheryl's family is neurodiverse. She's the mother of 3 adult children, including an autistic daughter, who continue to be her inspiration. She's passionate about celebrating the rich, diverse experiences of autistic individuals and families who identify as neurodivergent. And I'm so grateful to have known Cheryl for a while, and I'm really happy that she's here to present with us tonight. And then we have 2 amazing couples. We have Linje and Nivischi. They've been married for 7 years. They have a 9-month-old daughter, and they live in an Atlanta suburb. They are honored to be here and share with you today. And as I said before, we are just as honored that you're here, so thank you. And then we have Mike and Anne-Marie. They've been married for 10 years. They're both originally from Chicago area, but met in Virginia, where they reside with their 2 lively and creative 8- and 6-year-old kids. Mike's frequent asking of questions has found a home in his profession as an instructional designer for adult learners. Anne-Marie is currently a stay-at-home mom. She previously worked as a graphic designer, photographer, and creative department manager. They both love exploring different cultures and finding humor in everyday life. I'm going to let Cheryl take it away.
All right. Let's see if she can. I just have to share my screen.
And we have faith in you.
I know. I will continue to share. So, what I'm going to do in the next few minutes, and very, very quickly, so that we can get to the real heart of this presentation, really the heart and soul of it, our couples, is give a little bit of an overview and just some background information. The information that I'm going to present will kind of give a foundation of some of the things that you'll hear about and the themes that the couples will be talking about. It's based on an article that I wrote last February that was in the AANE web-based newsletter on neurodiverse families. And it also includes some quotes. All of the quotes are directly from direct communications that I've had with the individuals. Again, I think it really adds to the flavor of the presentation. So the other thing, as I talk, what we've discovered initially, what was more the traditional approach, I think, and the traditional language was that the non-autistic or neurotypical was the language. Partner was considered the woman, and so a lot of things that you might read or come across use the pronouns of he, she, and he for the person who's neurodivergent. That's no longer the case. It's not the way we think of things. And so tonight, I'm going to use the word partner wherever possible, except where an individual referenced their partner by gender. And so we're really including all families that a partner and a neurodivergent couple can be, two women, two men. Both can be neurodivergent, and there also can be additional family members, children who are. So I'm going to be as globally inclusive as possible in the information that the way that I present it. So if it sounds a little bit differently, perhaps than what you've heard. Okay, so there really is an increasing awareness of neurodiverse families, which makes a lot of sense when we're looking at the numbers of incidents of autism. Every individual, whether it's a young child or a young adult, is part of a family. So we're really starting to think more about not only individuals and their strengths, but how they fit into the context of a family. And the one thing that we do know, especially from those of us who study and think about family systems, is just the idea that whenever you make a change in one part of a system, it affects the other. So having one or more family members who are neurodivergent, that combination and that interaction changes the way that family functions. And each of these neurodivergent families have diverse experiences, unique challenges, as well as strengths. And I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the strengths as well. Sometimes we really do approach it more as a deficit model, or we hear about the challenges, but I think we also need to recognize the strengths. But I am going to start with the challenges and recognize that these can vary greatly depending on the specific characteristics or the profile of each of the partners or the family members that we're talking about. And what we're talking about when we talk about an autistic profile is that there are a number of characteristics that are associated with that present to different degrees and in different ways for individuals. And those characteristics that are the most challenging for that individual is going to kind of determine what the interactions are with other family members and maybe where some of the quote bumps in the road might lie. The most common ones, at least that I see and hear about a lot from people, are in the areas of communication, executive functioning, sensory sensitivities. And for the purpose of this, I'm including child rearing, and I'm going to cover some of the highlights of what those might be. So the first area is really communication, which again, given the nature of autism as a verbal and social communication disorder, makes a whole lot of sense. So this neurodivergence and different neurotypes can really affect the ability of a couple to understand each other and to work together. And that mismatch or that connection is really what connects families together and also maybe creates some of those challenges. There can also be different expectations about things like sharing information, scheduling, participating in household responsibilities and family activities. And then also we have to acknowledge that there are skills that may need to be gained or honed, if you will, in order to successfully navigate daily interactions. And this can be done on an individual level, on a couples. As Amanda mentioned before, it can be with neurodiverse couples coaching or counseling or therapy. It can also be that each member of the family may have their own individual therapist as well as a coach. So sometimes there are a variety of supports that have to be put in place to help that family be successful. Now, this is actually an interaction that I from a conversation. And again, as I said before, I have written permission from all of these individuals to use these quotes. So this is one time where I will read the whole thing. I was talking with an individual recently, and the way he said it, he said, most of the time when I have a conversation with my partner, I really don't understand what my partner is saying. This is a couple that's been together 25 years and they're married 20. And he says, if I don't understand, I just don't respond. And I want to say, you know why I don't respond? It's because I have no freaking clue what you said. And he said that I realized because after coaching and after some work alone and with his partner, he said, I realized that I had no vocabulary to have conversations with my partner. It's like I have 8 crayons in my Crayola crayon box and she has 120. And this created a very tough dynamic. And I think this is a lot of what happens in this area of communications. Finalized, he said, she still has many more crayons in her crayon box, but now we can talk about it. And I can say, I don't know what you just said. I heard the words, but I don't know what you said, and I don't know how to respond. That's a huge change, and that really opens up a lot of ability for that couple to improve their communication. But again, I love that analogy. Executive functioning is another area. So what are we talking about? Time management, difficulties with emotional regulation or sensory sensitivities, maintaining household routines or tasks. Some of the big ones there, especially ones that get to be challenging for couples, might be budgeting, scheduling, meal preparation, and childcare. Some of the challenges, here's some words from some couples. Some days it feels like I'm putting out fires when emotions run high in our house. My partner likes to be the fun guy. When his active and loud playing upsets the kids, he gets triggered and upset, and it's very overwhelming for me in those moments. I feel like a struggling mediator when they all have trouble with emotional regulation and build anger off each other. So you can see how the neurodivergence that may be expressed one way by one partner affects the other partner in a way because of their sensory sensitivities. Now, with regard to child rearing, of course, there's a million things we could talk about, but these are some of the themes that I hear a lot. Parents not acting like a team. Maybe it's because of varying communication styles and or expectations, but there can be frustration and conflict and really a misalignment in terms of how you approach a situation. Now, oftentimes the neurodivergent parent may feel controlled or dismissed, and the non-autistic or the allistic, sometimes people say partner, may feel that sense of overwhelm, that there's an imbalance and that they're having to do so much more than they really want to, and they're always exhausted. But the truth is that I think both partners end up feeling really exhausted for whatever reason, but that also leads to the challenges in child rearing. The biggest area where you see it again in children is one is with the parents interacting around things that have to be done for the children, but with regard to the actual interaction with the children is around discipline. So again, sometimes roles are just not balanced. One parent feels really pushed into the role of the disciplinarian, and the other might feel inadequate in order to do these things. Sometimes there's a rigid approach to discipline or routines or activities on the part of one parent. And this is sometimes referred to as a too much or too little approach, that maybe one parent is overly structured and therefore expects their children to be, doesn't quite understand why a child can make a mistake and yet needs the ability to try and do something again, or might need a little more reassurance. They might want to take the approach as a friend, which only makes their partner angry and probably confuses their children as well. Um, Now, there are some real strengths here, and not all families will experience these at the same time. But when you sort of have a forward-thinking perspective and hear what couples say over time, these are some of the things that people report that when you understand each other's neurotype, when you learn how to have that empathy and be able to see something from someone else's perspective, it leads to greater understanding. And that means that you can accept your partner's needs and preferences and experiences. When you don't, it's very confusing. But when you can understand it, then it actually helps to develop more flexibility and patience and a willingness to work together, and also better problem solving and adaptive skills. So you can develop co-regulation, maybe creative problem solving, and maybe a greater resilience. So the other things, especially what I try to talk with folks about, is to recognize and appreciate small victories, to try to grow stronger through overcoming adversity. Some families have that, we're a team and we're in this together and we're gonna. That's actually works very, very well. And finally, what really becomes inspiring, I think, for all of us, and you'll, I think, hear this from our couples in just a very few minutes, is to be able to celebrate those differences that make each family unique. So these are two other quotes from two other families. Again, folks who've been, in each case, these are folks who've perhaps done some work and also have some perspective from being in a as a couple and in a family relationship for a long time. It took a long time to get there, but now I just want to be the best version of myself, and I want that for my partner and kids too. I love my family. I love us. I love who we are, and I'm just positive and optimistic. I want things to go forward together. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay.
Thank you, Cheryl. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sure. I was just going to say, let's see. Amanda, I'll turn it back to you so you can decide which couple to introduce.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the way you kind of set the stage for this conversation. And I really love the way that you brought in quotes from people who are experiencing this. And I think that's really why we asked these couples to come again tonight, and why we are giving, wanting them to kind of take the majority of this conversation, because I think yes, as professionals, we have good things to share and we can share about the literature and all of that. But I think you guys all really want to hear from people with this lived experience. So I really appreciate, Cheryl, your knowledge and also kind of bringing in those quotes and all of that. All right. So I'm going to ask each of our couples to introduce yourselves. I know I gave a little introduction, but you can dive deeper and share whatever you feel like you want to share about yourselves, about your relationship, anything that you want to share. I'll start with Linje and Nivischi if you are up for it. Great. All right, go ahead.
Off mute.
Okay. So we're Linje and Nivischi. Linje, Nivischi. This is year 7 of marriage, and even prior to becoming a married couple, while we were dating, there were some things that, just gave me pause, or there was a question mark about. And, as we continued in our relationship and as our marital experience developed, those question marks just became a little more apparent. And so we decided to seek some support to figure out what those things were and how we could learn from and grow through the things that we realized were a part of our experience.
Okay, so as she said, I'm Linje. I guess I can do the standard stuff like I'm a consultant, data analytics. That nobody cares about that, but I think the thing that I want to talk about to kind of jump into the meat of the discussion is especially around especially around having, we just, our daughter's like 10 months yesterday. And so what's been interesting is just kind of the experiences
And
yeah,
that's
there
her.
she is. Yes. So the experiences and kind of the impacts that hold on. Where should we? Oh, I get it. Oh, there we go, baby. Oh, that that come with having a kid. Like, so I guess what I'm trying to say is like it's a game changer, a big game changer. And people kind of say like, oh well, it's gonna, you'll have less time and what am I trying to say here? You'll have less time, you think you could accomplish things, beforehand and now I find that I mean I'm amazed at the challenge that it involves basically. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Oh, you want to switch over? Okay, switch out. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Amanda. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was gonna ask you guys before we go to our other couple to kind of give us an introduction. I wanted to ask, so when people hear neurodiverse couples, they often imagine challenges. And we're not sugarcoating, we're not pretending that there aren't challenges. We know that there are in any relationship, and I'm sure there are particular challenges in neurodiverse relationships. But there's also a lot of creativity and resilience. And so, as we get started, I'm wondering if there's something you could share, one thing that you wish people better understood about neurodiverse relationships or about parenting as a neurodiverse couple.
Okay, I'll take this one. So I think to Cheryl's point, you got to try to work from your strengths. Like what you do well, you want to bring that. Like if in every aspect, we kind of learned this. I kind of absorbed it a little bit before we had the baby, but the idea is that like I do some things better than my wife. My wife does many things better than I do, and so we want to try to latch onto those things and leverage those things and bring those things to kind of solve problems that we run into. I mean, from childcare to any number of issues that kind of bump up. So I was really happy to see Cheryl talk about like strength and we have this thing we try to talk about like a strength-based couple. That's kind of our motto. So we're kind of like I mean we're trying to practice what we preach on that, but that's a big issue that we that's a area of that's how we deal with our issues basically. We try to deal with our issues, I would say.
I think that's a great method. And are there any specific strengths that you have and or that Nivischi has that you'd be willing to share where you're like, oh yeah, we recognize that like one of us backs away from this because it's not our thing, but the other one of us is really great at it?
Yeah, I mean, Navishi's much better with emotions, recognizing emotions, speaking to the emotions that are like that. I mean, even when it comes to like, it's funny, she's very insightful around emotions and feelings, things like that. And so where I struggle more with those things, but she's oftentimes telling me how I feel about certain, like when I can't identify my feelings. She's oftentimes there before I can. She knows what's happened before I do on that aspect. So that's one specific thing. She's much more, she's just better and she's, I guess, more in tune with that kind of aspect. And then me, I'm better with like spreadsheets and like, computers and things like that. So, I mean, when it comes to budgeting and, she's like, hey, that'll be Lindy's wheelhouse. Like he can handle the Excel spreadsheets and when it comes to what would you say,
Like
Pat?
I've often said to Linji, if I were to be the one that took the con on our budgets, it would be pencil and paper, and that is all I'd have to offer. For reals.
Yeah. So that's our example.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that example and for your introduction. And so, Mike and Anne Marie, let's go to you. I would love to just hear a little bit of your own introduction of who you are, and then I'm going to ask you that same question, but I'll repeat it again so you don't have to remember it.
Awesome. It's great to be here and it's great to be with Linje and Nivischi as well. We know them through something else, but it's great to be with them. So we've been married for 10 years. We have two kids, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. And actually, do you want to say something?
Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm a neurodivergent. Hi, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah. So
We,
is
oh yeah, we put a lot of thought into today. So we have we were thinking the scope is quite broad. So we have like some areas we can narrow in on. I think the initial question was about strengths. And I was thinking, so in grad school, I did like a little studying on economics and uh, specifically Latin America. And we were like, okay, let's compare Latin America to Korea. We're like, Korea's like economy was just like this, slow and steady. And over time, it really like, kind of go like this. Latin America's is like, and I would say that's kind of like neurodivergence, is like more of like the Latin style.
You mean like how we've been like managing
You will not be bored.
Oh yeah.
You will not
Yeah.
be bored, and people are very friendly.
Yeah. So for what you said about strengths, yeah. When Mike and I first started dating, I immediately noticed that he was unique and had so many fun and different qualities that I just immediately appreciated about him. He was so genuine, so honest, open, and just was unabashed in how much he enjoyed the people around him and enjoyed the world that he was in. And it was just really refreshing, just that honesty. And I really appreciated that. And then going into parenthood, it's fun to see those qualities also come out in parenthood. So he's constantly making up songs. Like he's always thinking of songs in his head of like hilarious events that are going on in our family, whether like I'm anxious about going out the door with the kids or whether the kid, brought home something exciting from school. Mike will then like make his own little song.
This morning's song was about our friend made us sourdough bagels.
Yeah.
So I sung about sourdough bagels to the tune of My Country 'Tis of Thee.
Yeah, so he'll just like randomly occasionally insert these little things that like lighten the mood. I have anxiety, so I can tend to be like drilled in on, okay, here's what we need to do, where we need to go. We need to complete these 3 things to get there. And he kind of brings in a lot of the light and joy and just like, hey, let's just appreciate this moment.
An example, it's like my kids love when I play Monster. And so they're at the playground. They're like, Dad, play Monster. And I'm like, Monster. I'm like, okay, here comes a big scary monster.
Yeah,
so
he can dive
so
right
inevitably,
in.
I have like a whole gaggle of kids that'll be following in. They want the monster to scare them. And so like actually got like one time I was like up on like the playground equipment. I was like jumping up and down and someone's like, sir, you're frightening the children. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I was like, it's just a monster going wild. And I was like looking and I was like, yeah, if I had some like grown man bouncing up and down like in front of my kids, I'd be like a little uncomfortable too. So
yeah, Mike has
but no understanding of like just like, oh yeah, that probably wasn't a great idea.
Mike brings a lot of enthusiasm to our life. And we took some notes to share, but I think that's probably for later. Yeah.
Well, I do want to say, Mike, I feel like I would love to hear one of these songs one day. I'm not saying you have to do it now in front of
I'll
everyone.
totally do one if we have time.
But if you have time at the end and you
I
would
might
like to
give you
share
one.
some, you can. I'm just saying, it sounds amazing. And I sing songs to my dogs and about my dogs all day. So I'm curious how similar or different your songs are. Mike, I know you had like some stuff prepared. Do you want to do that now, or is that in relation to a specific question?
Oh, if I have the chance, I would happily oblige. So yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's hear what you'd say.
Yeah.
I may cut you off if I want to get to specific questions and I'm looking at the time, but go for it.
Okay, so learning objectives are threefold. Number 1, and this is from the dad's perspective, identify how you can be useful. Number 2, outline kind of just best practices to be like aware of for neurodivergent stuff. Number 3, recognize when you or another person is in distress. Okay, number 1, identify how you can be useful. Amanda, can you bring up image number 1, please? Have a series of images.
We have like Vanna White over here.
So I did a trip to India a number of years ago for my best friend's wedding. And I had been traveling, but it was the most different place I had ever been in my life. And I was like, this is a perfect representation of being a new parent. So this picture is like of a crowded market I went to in South India. I'm there, you're first there, and you're like, this is super fun. And then you have like diesel exhaust in your face, and there's 1,000 people. And you're like, I want to go home now. And then you're like, I'm stuck here. So And then we can bring up image number 2 as well. So when I was there, and I don't mean to knock on India. This is just like the specific part I was in this particular city. The countryside was wonderful. So an acronym I've heard is India, I'll never do it again. And so, and I talked to a friend who lived here many years. He was the same way. And then a year later, you're like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. I can't wait to go back and get more. And so that is like how I think about it. So you're like, wow,
That's how you think about parenting.
that's what I think about parenting. Yeah,
Yeah,
not of
yeah,
India.
yeah.
Yeah, you're like, wow, I really am over my head. I don't want to be here. I want to go back home. And then like a year later, your brain basically filters out the challenging stuff, and you're like, I can't wait to go back. So I said a little bullet point to myself as people generally want to help, but they won't know unless you need it. So let's say you're at a hotel and they're like, how can I help you? And you're like, I'm good, I don't need anything. They're like, okay. Or if you're like, oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, here's a bottle of water. Oh, I'm hungry. Restaurants down the street. I'm tired. Oh, well, you can check in early. Like all these things that you wouldn't know unless you kind of let them know.
So just to summarize, you're saying let people know how they can help you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
And if you
excellent.
go, I don't really know, but I'm feeling overwhelmed, then they can probably provide you with some ideas.
Okay, gotcha.
So this brings me to point number.
Mike, can I pause you for 1 second? This is
Definitely.
very cool. I just want to clarify. So these are points that you have specifically for folks thinking about like preparing to have children or just relationships in general?
I originally did it with the children angle. I suppose you could do relationships, but that would be maybe if it was a really intense one.
Okay, so this
So
is
take out all the things. There's one in particular later that I think will be helpful to everybody. And I was telling earlier, you should print this out and carry it in your wallet and bring it everywhere you go.
okay, perfect. I'm gonna open up number 3.
Yeah, let's bring up number 3. So this is identify how you can be useful and ways to bond. So as a dad, it's actually very hard to know how to be useful. And I've talked to tons of dads, and this is their case as well. So you see the mom elephant and the baby elephant. Oh, it's so cute. What elephant do you not see in this picture?
The dad.
The dad. Where is the dad? Who knows? So you're the dad. You're kind of out of the picture. The mom and the baby is the main goal is the survival and the nourishing of this baby here. So it's interesting to see this in nature, like kind of as a background. So I found very specific things were helpful. Example being changing diapers. You're like, okay, baby has a need, and I can solve this need, and like.
And you're talking about specifically for the newborn phase. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you could do this like for different things in general. Like let's just say baby needs to do math homework. Okay, I want to help with the math homework.
So Mike's going over this because initially when the baby was first born, he felt very isolated, like mom and baby were bonding, mom's feeding the baby, and he felt like on the outskirts, like, what am I supposed to do? So he's kind of outlining, he had made himself a list of things that he can do because in the moment he wasn't sure how to help.
So you're like, okay, baby's crying. You're like, diaper. Yep. Food. Yep. Okay. You're tired. You're kind of going through this. Taking out trash, also very helpful. And for both of these, I have like an amazing sense of smell, which is wonderful for wine tasting. But for the baby, I would just put a mask on and I'm like, all right, mask. So the baby's like, yep, the dude with the mask is changing my poopy diaper. So and then there's hacks you can do like the changing pad. We didn't do a changing table. You put it on the ground. So you're tired. Like you can think of ways to organize your space, simplify things whenever you can. If you got a lot going on in your life, just do the meal delivery service. So like me, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna research all the options and stuff. Just sign up for one. If you hate it, you can cancel it and switch.
Mike, can I jump in for a second? Because I love what you're saying here. It's such a great tip, which is like, it's okay to outsource things if you need to, right? Figure out that
you do not
balance.
outsource, you will
The amount of spoons that
not
you
be able to.
have and where you don't have any spoons or where you don't have that energy and you can outsource to someone else. I like that. Am I
So funny enough, my Facebook
picture 4
is
right
like,
now?
oh, go ahead. Oh yeah, we'll bring it up in a minute. So my Facebook is extremely targeted. It's like, are you a tired dad of like a struggling family? And I'm like, I am a tired dad of a struggling family. And like, well, Hungry Roots for you and it's 90% off. I'm like, sign me up. So we'll kind of come to you in that way. Let's see, things to be aware of. since the wife is literally supporting a human being with her body, she will not be as interested in snuggling you. So that is like good to know at the outset. So this is a good time to talk about it. Go for a walk. Being outside is very important. That was also one of the few ways I could console a upset baby. You're like, let's go for a walk. Time to work out. Reminisce of photos of you together. I actually saw Anne Marie's like stock photo here when we were pause was our wedding photo. I'm like, ah. So having this stuff ready to go, and this is where you get into the secret sauce that applies to everybody. She and I are very good on focusing on the long game. And I remember thinking about this when I was going to change jobs a few years ago. I was like, okay, let me ask all the people that I like if I think that I should go for this. And I was like, let me find someone that I don't like, and I'm going to ask his opinion. And he was like, go for the one that has the most money, and you're going to play it in the short term. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do the opposite of what this guy says. So everyone else was like, pick a place that you like and go for the long term. So let's say you're like, dang it, this stinks. I'm exhausted. It's like your freshman year of college, and you're like, all right, we're going to get this college degree together. And that's like I realize when you're married, like, wedlock, you're like, oh, I see where that term come from. Number 4. Number 4 is one of my favorite photos. And I'll speed this up because I can tell I'm going on here. No. Number 4, as this brings up, is this is a picture of me. It's me on the right, not on the left. This is my mom reading the encyclopedia to me when I was a little baby. And so seeing like the impact you have on another person, especially a baby in this case, but even a family member or friend, is just amazing. So look how captivated I am here, and the like being fully present that way is like an amazing time in your life. And so like as a parent, you getting to have that chance is just awesome. And I like love, I mean, I can go on Wikipedia for like 4 or 5 hours. As a kid, I would love reading, and so this is I can see like in retrospect, this is where that started. So as a parent, you're gonna have the opportunity.
Do you think I should add in some stuff now? Is that okay? If I say something?
That's a good question.
He's like wants to go down his list, but maybe we should break it up.
Let me show you one more.
Okay.
I'll skip number 5, go to number 6. This is the one you print out in the wallet. So this is called the energy ranking. And this is especially helpful when you're tired or you're upset. And what it does is it ranks all the things in your life that give you energy and the things that do not give you energy. So in the red here, and I should have put like a little thing for colorblind. And sorry about this. Number top 3, fussy wife, anxious wife, and screaming kids. No one likes that stuff. So below that is the meltdown category. If you feel like you're having a meltdown, things that make me feel better is playing the game Polytopia on my phone, eating a kebab, doing a head massage, playing a game called Terraforming Mars, and wearing Bose earbuds.
Can I add in for a second?
Yes.
So basically, just to give context, Mike, when he's having like an emotional meltdown or a shutdown, in those moments, he initially didn't know what to do. So he, working with the counselor, he came up with this idea, or from their idea, he wrote out, okay, here's what I'm going to do. If I'm in the middle of a meltdown, these are things that calm me down specifically. Or if I need to do something relaxing, here's my list of things that are relaxing for me. So him having those printed out on a piece of paper helped him when he was upset and, executive function is lower in those times. Having a go-to list of like, here's what I can do to start coping, he found very helpful for him.
And it's also, I think, good for people in general, so that you're not just like scroll on my phone. Like it's down to the list where I even ranked my friends, and I like took their names off of it. But like me calling one friend or texting one friend, that's particularly rejuvenating. I'm probably gonna get 4 times of benefit out of the other friend.
And it's not a negative thing. It's just like knowing, okay, if I call this person or text them, it's going to immediately help me feel better. I mean, so that's what he means. And if I need help right now, who's going to be the person that's going to kind of help lift my mood a bit?
Yeah. And only if we can bring it up easily. Number 7, the image of the coconut. And the preface of this is even something that looks like just one thing can make a huge difference. The backstory was on this India trip. our internet wasn't working. We got to the airport and our flight was delayed by 4 hours. And so we're like, well, what are we gonna do? And so there was like a stand right there, and they're like, hey, we can just chop open a fresh coconut for you. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted to try this. And so just having like a fresh coconut, I was just like, okay, I can sit here for 4 hours. So whatever is your fresh coconut, can make a massive difference. So it takes some time to honestly go and think through it. But like my list was like number one was like sit in a hammock. And it's like, if I have to sit in a hammock and order kebab and call a friend, it's like, holy crap, I'd be feeling amazing. Like you'd feel like you won the lottery at that point. So you can kind of do those permutations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I add in some things?
Whew. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah. I was just, that's fine. It's okay. Yeah. I was just gonna say that, so I had mentioned earlier those things, like all those great qualities that we appreciated in each other. When we were first dating and married, we were able to see very clearly especially in a non-stressful environment. So with the birth of our first child, we kind of felt our foundation quaking a bit or a lot, because with the birth of our first child, it brought in an enormous amount of joy, but an enormous amount of stress into our relationship. So
That's the India photo.
yeah, that's right. So our world shifted at that moment, at that point, and we would, over the next 8 years, be navigating that shift. And what we didn't know at the time was that our child was on the autism spectrum. I was dealing with postpartum anxiety and having feeding issues with the baby. Mike was on the autism spectrum and we didn't realize at that time, but dealing with an enormous amount of sensory overload. So he was at that moment unprepared for the onslaught of sensory cacophony, repeated waves of stress, confusion with understanding the baby's social cues, and then difficulty with his own emotional regulation as a fire hose of all this life was like blasting in our face. So with this, he started entering depression. And in these moments, we, clung to the good moments, we clung to the good memories, but we were walking on eggshells in the difficult moments. And this wasn't the baby's fault. It was just the stress of our new life together was revealing areas that we really needed support in. So we just realized, okay, we can keep white knuckling this and trying, just to see our way through this kind of without a flashlight, or we could get help. So that is where things took a turn for the better, is we decided to get help in multiple areas that we specifically saw we needed some support in. And this, I am so grateful that we did, because it really helped. It helped us get on a better course. So at that, and in hindsight, I kind of wish that before we had the baby that we had the support list ready to go, but that wasn't there at the time, but it was more available for our second child. But yeah, our list ready to go would have had our family counselor that their main expertise was in neurodiverse families. Like at that time, we really needed like bullseye advice. We didn't have time to like sift through general advice. And also we both needed the support of individual counselors. So me for my generalized anxiety disorder, which was seriously flaring up in postpartum, and also him for the depression that he was dealing with. And then later on, getting a psychiatrist. We personally found it helpful to have some medicine to support us. And then, there was a whole bunch of other supports we got related to our children that we needed later on. And that's a whole nother category. But basically, in summary, for us, we realized us just trying to wing it with our instincts wasn't going great, white knuckling it, and our relationship was suffering. So it took a huge amount of pressure off when we finally said, okay, let's get some help here and help specifically for what we're dealing with, not just general.
So like,
So
here's an example of someone we saw that they're like, yeah, if your kid's upset, they just need a hug to be closer. And then not knowing that like someone is autistic and hugging them closer, it's
not
a
always,
total disaster.
not always what they want.
So you're like,
Thank you.
okay, that person was not helpful whatsoever.
Thank you guys so much, both Mike and Emory and Linje and Nivischi, for being so vulnerable and open with us. I really appreciate it. And I want to kind of echo what I heard you say just now, Anne Marie, which is that it wasn't just support in general, and Mike, actually, you both kind of said this with your example, but it wasn't just support, but it was really specific, targeted support with a counselor or a therapist who had expertise in neurodiverse relationships that made the difference. Because a lot of times in my practice, people will come to me and they'll say, well, we've been in couples therapy before. We don't know that we need to do that. We don't know that would be helpful. And I always say, well, let's try it because I have a different lens. Like let's check it out from this different lens. And oftentimes we find that that's really helpful to look at it from a different lens, a different perspective. Because actually, Mike, I loved your example of like, just hug the child or something, but maybe that doesn't make sense when we consider a different neurocognitive profile than what someone else might expect, right? So thank you guys so much. And Mike, first of all, I love all of the thoughts that you shared for prospective parents or current parents, but I also love the way that you shared it. I think it really highlights, again, I know we talk about this when we talk about schooling and all of this for people with autism or other different needs, but it really highlights that we all learn and experience the world in different ways, even just the way you presented that to us. And I think about how important that is for couples to understand amongst each other, right? What are the ways that each of us likes to express ourselves, likes to communicate with each other and with the world. So that was really wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. We have a request to just talk about spoon theory. I don't want to spend too much time because I have tons of questions for you all. I'll just say really briefly, when we think about spoon theory, we're thinking about, we're referring to kind of a metaphor for people who are neurodivergent, managing chronic illness. People often call themselves spoonies, but the idea around spoon theory is that daily energy is represented by a limited number of spoons. So there's not a specific number. You might decide you have a different number than I have, but let's say I feel like I've got 5 spoons every day, and every kind of thing that we do takes up some of those spoons. So maybe that's showering, going to work, preparing dinner, things like that. And the idea is that everyday tasks, like I said, they each kind of take a spoon, take some of that energy. And once you're out of spoons, it really means kind of I'm out of energy, and it would be really challenging to do something else. So I might come home from work and maybe I thought I was going to make dinner, but I come home and I say, I'm really out of spoons today. I don't think I can make dinner. I'm just going to order something in. So that's a very quick and dirty version of it. But essentially, like I said, what we think about is, that all of the things that we do throughout our day require effort. And for each person as an individual, those things require different amounts of effort. So for me, I love chatting. So it doesn't take too much out of me to chat with my colleagues at work. But for someone else, having to socialize in the workplace might take a lot of energy or might take a spoon away from them, if that makes sense. All right, so I do have a bunch of questions for Cheryl and for the couples. I want to remind the folks watching that if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. I want to take a step back. Before we talk more about parenting, I wanted to talk a little bit about your partnership and your relationships. And I was wondering, something that the couples I work with struggle with a little bit is there's this moment when they first find out that they're in a neurodiverse relationship of relief. Oh, this all makes sense now. I get it. Great. And then they have all these tips and tools and they're so excited to use them. And then there's kind of this plateau of like, wait, but we're different. We see the world differently. We think about things differently. How do we kind of move forward with that? And so what I wanted to ask you is, how do you guys negotiate, or how do you guys understand each other's traits and needs in a relationship while knowing that the way that you think, process information, and communicate those needs might always be different? No matter how much counseling or therapy or coaching you get, you may always communicate or may always have different needs or expectations in the relationship. How do you guys manage that or think about that?
Ooh,
We want to ask Linje and Nivischi if they want to go first, just we're not monopolizing. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
one just that comes right off the head or
We'll
off
come to you next, Linje and Nivischi.
is yeah, and then you guys can have a turn, well-deserved turn. So I had like some testing done of strengths and weaknesses and stuff. So my like communication skills are like 99% amazing communication. I'm like, yes. And then they're like, your ability to follow ambiguous directions are like bottom 0.01% of the entire country. And I was like, whoa. And they're like,
His ability to follow ambiguous directions.
like,
yeah.
and then they had this nice way of being like, you're special. And I was like, thank you. So like she would say something and I would do exactly what. So she'd be like, okay, I need you to wait for me to have, we'll have dinner together tonight. And then you can take out the trash. And so let's just say if she's like, oh, I didn't get home until 9, the trash would have been taken out. I'd be sitting there and be like, I'm starving. I was waiting 4 hours. And she'd be like, I was like, you told me not to, we're gonna have dinner together, so I'm gonna wait because you said it's like important to you. And so she literally had to be like, for your entire life, whenever you're hungry, just go ahead and eat. And I was like, no, but really, when it's important, she was like, I literally don't care. This is your carte blanche to eat whenever you need it. Because I was like, you told me that. So I was like, I was specifically following those instructions.
Oh, okay. So you're basically talking about how we navigated that. If I gave ambiguous directions, it was super confusing for you and kind of caused you anxiety. And then if I gave very clear instructions, yeah,
But
we
because you don't even realize that's how you're operating until you're like, oh, that's why you didn't eat until 9 o'clock.
and to answer your question from before, like I think for us, we're both very respectful for what each other needs and what brings each other joy. And so for me, it's very important that Mike has time to do the things that he likes to do. And yeah, so I'm always mentally aware, like, okay, you know, let's make sure you have time to do this or see this friend, because he has his own unique things that fill him up, and it's very important to me that he gets those things. It can be separate from me. It doesn't have to be together. And same thing for me, like he knows I love to do art and things like that. So he's like, I'll watch the kids tonight. You can, go meet up a friend and do some art or whatever. So we're kind of have each other's back. And like, you've been working really hard. I think you should take a break now. So, and we also try to be aware when each other is getting depleted. And, I can tell when Mike, like you said, has used all of his spoons. And so other people might be like, oh, the dad's really supposed to be doing this part or whatever. And I'm like, he's out of energy and I'm not going to be resentful of that. I can do bedtime tonight, or whatever. So we kind of have each other's back and don't be resentful about it. And he does the same for me. So that's just what I wanted to say about that.
I didn't pull an example just for copyright, but if you search like mood chart on Google, printing a 1 page to be like, okay, where you're like working. I haven't done anything fun in a week. You got to put that in is like a game changer.
Great, thanks. So kind of balancing out, making sure that you get to do the things that fill your cup in addition to the things that we have to do as adults
Totally.
and parents. Thanks, Mike and Emory. Linje and Nivischi, did you guys want to answer that question?
You wanna answer that one? Yeah. Well, I think like Mike and Emory were something they said kind of resonated with me in particular. They talk about like communication and like communication styles, and I think Navisha does a really good job of kind of understanding like when she communicates with me. Like I guess to Mike's point, I'm kind of like from point A to point B, very linear in my thinking, basically. So I found that like when like with with handling with like having a young kid, like you have to kind of you have to be a little more flexible basically than straight linear thinking on all your tasks. So I think Nivischi does a good job of remaining patient with me when my linear thinking kind of creeps into, things that develop just between us, or if specific tasks that need to be done with the childcare, taking care of things around the house, anything like that. So, but yeah, I think like how she communicates and patience are two big things that we kind of lean on a lot, just in terms of just kind of keep things kind of smooth and flowing well around our place, basically. So. Anything to add?
Sure. And so one of the things we're learning is what works best and how do these things work well. Lists. We are learning to utilize our lists more. We'll pull up the Notes app on our phone and we'll create a shared list for multiple things. I think it was recently you're like, okay, let's create another list because it works, and it's annoying sometimes because it's here goes another list. However, because we know it's something that works for us and we know it's something that will be a win, we are creating multiple lists for multiple things because that's what we need to lean into to make it a more successful experience as we navigate this new parenting journey.
Absolutely, and it feels good to check things off the list for me always. That's like that just feels nice. So
I know it's like a rush, right? Sometimes we talk about
definitely.
how we write on our to-do list, like create to-do list, so you can check it off right away. It keeps you motivated to keep going. We have some great questions coming in the chat. One question that I was going to ask you was, how do you stay connected as a couple when exhausted, when we're thinking about parenting or just general adult responsibilities? But somebody else asked, how do you navigate date nights, planning, childcare, prepping? So I kind of thought those two go together. So if you guys want to answer either or both of those, how do you stay connected to each other? And how do you think about navigating date nights and all the planning and logistics that go into that?
So I love that one question bleeds into the other, Amanda, because that is what we do. We've been really, really fortunate that we have been able to maintain date nights. We're in a space where we have family close by and variety of family, both sets of grandparents. We have aunts, siblings that are close by. So since our daughter has been born, we've been able to maintain date nights. I was sharing with one of my cousins who also is a mom of a youngling. And I was like, yeah, so the other day in our date night, we blah, blah, blah. And she said, date who? We haven't had a date who in so long. And I'm like, yeah, we're blessed because we have people that we know love and care for our daughter and who are willing to not just invest in her care, but invest in our ability to maintain some semblance of connection.
Yeah, and we also do a good job on date night of checking in with each other. So, we have this thing called the what is it called? I'm trying to remember. What's our check-in thing called? Daily temperature reading. DTR. So we basically, you kind of start with like I guess it's like 5 parts. The first part is you say, what do you appreciate about your partner? And so I say, I appreciate how well you're, raising the child. I appreciate how pretty you look tonight, blah, blah, blah. And then then she does it back to me. And then the second part is new information, which is like, okay, what new information do you have that you haven't shared with me yet? Then the third part is puzzles. Like what puzzles you like. I was puzzled today when what's a good example of a puzzle? Like when you went out the door and didn't tell me where you were going. That puzzled me, something like that. And then the last one is not the last one. The fourth one would be concerns, current concerns and recommendations. So it's kind of like something you want to change, basically. Like, hey, I'm concerned about this, and I recommend, not something you want to change, but something you want to bring your partner's attention to so that they can, hopefully kind of learn where you are. And your recommendation is like how they can maybe make it better for you. And then the last one is wishes, hopes, and dreams. So we always make sure we kind of check. Well, not always, we don't always do it, but we do it enough so that it's become kind of routine. And so when date night hits, we got to do a DTR basically. So that's kind of how we stay connected, basically.
And since having a child, we've added to that because we realize there's a need for not just our check-in with each other, but also check in to see how we're doing with parenting and what needs to be adjusted and how and all of it.
I love that the way that you guys do that check-in. And there was one part, it's all I think it's all really meaningful to you guys and interesting. But the one part I really loved was when you said we talk about something that was puzzling throughout the day.
Mm.
One of the things that I talk about often with the couples that I work with is approaching each other with curiosity. If we get frustrated with each other, if we're upset with each other, if something just didn't make sense, instead of presenting with anger, presenting with curiosity. Hey, I'm really, you know, curious about why you said it that way or whatever it is. And so I love that you guys have in there discussing something that was puzzling to you, because I find that oftentimes something that leads to arguments is just a miscommunication, right? We're speaking past each other in all relationships, and particularly in neurodiverse relationships where we may not respond the way that someone expects to facial expressions or to emotional content or things like that. So that is really, really helpful, I think, for everyone. And we've got tons and tons of questions. So again, I have lots of questions written, but I'm going to go to some of these here because I know people are really curious to hear these. And I think there was a great question that I wanted to, oh, here's one. Can you share how you agree on rules that are being set with kids? So this person gave an example. My neurodiverse husband has a rule that our kiddo puts on their uniform shirt before we leave the house, and I'm okay with them putting on their shirt before they get on the school bus, which is what our kiddo wants and seems like an easy yes. This often leads to a stalemate.
Mm.
Anyone want to share how you think about rules?
I'll say that that is certainly something that Mike and I come into conflict with. And so that is very challenging. For us, sometimes I have to talk with him about, we kind of got to pick our battles. We can't pick every battle with our child, like in the sense of, you don't like that he does this, 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 this. If we overload him with all those things that we don't like in a negative way, it's not really making progress. So let's like do positive affirmation with what he's doing great. And then let's like work through one thing at a time. At least that's where we find we make progress. Because otherwise it can be, picking your battles, especially with the neurodivergent child. We find how much do we want this? Because this could become a big battle with the child. So kind of navigating, we kind of make our main rules. Like, we don't want our kid to hit. We don't want our kid to say mean words to his sister, and we make those kind of things a priority over like some other things that are nice to haves. So I will say that can be a challenge, and Mike and I will go back and forth on, well, I think this is a priority. Well, I think this is a priority. And we kind of try to get through it, but I just will commiserate and say it could be really, really hard.
Like for me, what's frustrating is when someone does something, but they don't ask. So we come back to the thing of three-legged race. The one person's going and then, oh, they're trip. And then you're like, well, and then you both fall. So like, let's use the bus example. So if you're like, hey, why is it so important they have the uniform on first? And the response is like, oh, because otherwise they're going to forget the uniform. So like, it's a way. You're like, or like, well, in my family, we were ready before we went out the door, like family of origin thing to be aware of. And they might say, well, why do you like it? Well, because I'm super hot, or because like, I don't know, I love the way my shirt shines in the sunlight, like before I put my drab uniform on. So like explaining through it instead of just saying, oh, this, like we use the example of dessert in our house is always like a hot mess. Like to say, hey, let's think about how much sugar do we want our kids to have? And then like, okay, well, like I'll look it up. The max is 25 grams per day. So like, okay, we're going to cut off at 25. But like, how many people have this conversation? I know one out of like 100 couples that has it.
We're just saying that we're with you and we understand. And it is hard. We do try to prioritize, like, all right, here's all the things that we want, to help our child with. What is like the biggest priority that we're going to like be a true team on?
I think what I heard, sorry, I was going to say, I think another piece that I heard there was Mike, you saying, it's helpful to understand if someone feels strongly about a specific rule, it's helpful to understand why they feel that way and where that's coming from, so that when you try to do the negotiation that Anne Marie was talking about, it helps you guys kind of go to the negotiating table with a little bit more compassion, understanding, and ability to be flexible about what feels like something that where you're going to pick that battle or not. Does
It's
that
probably family of origin. I would say it's probably what it comes down to 50% of the time.
fair? So since we're talking about parenting a little bit, Linje and Nivischi, you guys are newer parents, and I'm wondering, I know you guys have tons of wisdom to share yourselves, but I'm wondering if you guys have any questions, since you're at a different stage in your parenting journey than Mike and Anne Marie. If you have any questions for them, or Mike and Anne Marie, if you have any questions for Linje and Nivischi about where they're at in their stage, in their parenting journey.
Yeah, I can. I mean, my question for Anne Marie and Mike is, it's I found with having a young kid that you have to be more. I've had to be more self-contained, basically. Like, so when I say that, I mean like in the past, I could maybe go to my wife and maybe depend on my wife more for a number of different things, like emotionally. And now that she has a kid, we have a child, I should say, she has more of her emotions, more of her energy bandwidth is consumed with the kid. So I found that that basically means I had to be more like self-regulating, basically. So the question is, have you found yourself in a similar position? This is really to Mike, I guess, Mike. And then I really like your idea. I'm jumping around a little bit, but I really like your idea of finding your coconut, like finding what works for you. But in any event, I guess what I'm trying to say is, have you found yourself in that situation? I mean, do you find that to be true of being a young parent, basically? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. I kind of think one of the few things that's comparable is like shutdown time, 2020. Uh, except I guess with this example of being on your own would be like, okay, you have to find your own mask and your own place to go that's safe and people who is on the same page. So yeah, or like the baby elephant thing, like the little babies depending on the mom. For me, that's where like finding something like discreet that's helpful. But if I didn't go in the energy list, I'd be like, I'm just gonna be on Facebook or playing computer games. So and even if it's like taking up a new hobby, like okay, here's something easy to do. I just bought a bass guitar on Facebook Marketplace and was like, that sounds like a lot of fun. And like honestly, I haven't played it that much, but like buying it and just playing it for like maybe 4 days was like pretty satisfying. So if you gotta like put a thing on out to some friends, hey, anything you do, and parallel play is like huge. Like we do parallel play. She's like, oh, I want to watch Anne of Green Gables, and I'm like, I want to play Civilization. And so she has her thing going, and I have my thing going, and we'll kind of be like, okay, you're because she'll be touched out. I'd be like, I will give you one shoulder tap. My little emotional support animal here is gonna say, you did such a good job. Now I'm gonna leave you alone.
Yes, this was so hard for Mike, and I felt so bad because especially in the newborn phase, I used to be able to give all of the, like, Mike is physical touch. So to him, that sensory pressure of a hug is like so important to him. But I felt like I was having feeding issues. I was nursing like around the clock. I was just like, I can't touch anyone. I am so worn out and I just want to cry. Like I'm just like, I have nothing to give. And I felt so bad for Mike because it was just like, it kind of felt like this little Eeyore in the background, like, nobody loves me anymore. You know what I mean? Which it's like, of course that's not true, but like, the huge drastic change of like used to getting tons of hugs and tons of affection and tons of like emotional, like mental communication. I'm not using the right words, but and then all of a sudden it's like I have nothing to give. It's like what happened? So yes, I did try to think of ways to help him, like in the sense of like if I have nothing to give in this moment, I got him like weighted blankets and like weighted stuffed
I got the
animals
most heavy stuffed animal I could find on Etsy.
because I was like, I just can't hug right now and I want to hug you soon. But like while you're waiting for me, while I'm with the baby, because he needs that like deep pressure, here's like a weighted sloth or here's a big weighted blanket. And I tried to do words of affirmation, which I don't think that really helped much, but I'd be like, I love you so much. I'm sorry that I'm an empty right now. Maybe even we'll set like a time on the calendar of like, you're going to get a nice big hug at this time and we'll connect, we'll talk, you know. And we also tried to do some dates during the day because at night I would just be like, I am not even like, I don't even know my name right now. So we tried to do some dates during the day to connect. But yeah, I did feel so bad about that. And I do think it gets better as the kids get older. Do you think?
Definitely, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's good, like any time that your wife will give you like time with the baby is important. So then the baby's not like, get out of my way, Dad. I just want the mom. Like, be like, go away, Mom. Just like do whatever. Order yourself a kebab. I'm gonna like hang out with the baby. I'm gonna play with those little baby hands and have them make
Yeah.
a song and
But
dance.
I did sometimes write in my calendar, like, because I'm a big to-do list person as well. I did sometimes put in my calendar, like, hug Mike today. Like, because it was just like between nursing and everything, it was just like, this is important. This is important to Mike. I got to make sure this happens. It's like on my priority list. But yeah. So,
That was
Um,
a good one, man.
And so we have a little bit of time left, and I really like this question that somebody put into the chat because it really gets to parenting, but also you two as a couple, each of you as a couple. So I wanted to ask this question. Have you ever realized a situation where one parent experienced something as supportive and the other later realized that it felt abandoning or too much, or I'll just add to this, just not as supportive as it was intended to be? If so, what helped you repair?
that happens to us often. And like there'll be times I'm very anxious and like literally doing everything I can to get the kids out the door on time. And it's like I'm trying to be supportive in the sense of like I'm taking care of the kids, I'm getting their shoes on, da da da, navigating all that, but in the process I'm getting anxious. And then Mike will be like, "Why are you anxious? Why are you using that like tone of voice?" And so yes, we do have that happen a lot where it's like I am literally just like trying to get the kids out the door. This is not, I'm not trying to like speak sternly to you or I don't know if that's the question, but yes, that does happen. And we have our own ways that we know uh, repair mechanisms that work for us. So there's a few that we do. For us, humor is like a huge repair mechanism. But first, we usually give each other space to calm down. So, like as an example, one of Mike's triggers is if I use a stern tone of voice with him. And that's like triggered by my anxiety. I'll be like, get the kids' shoes on. It's just like I'll be too stern. And we have like a formula we go through where it's like he'll say, you're speaking in a stern voice. It's triggering for me. Please don't. And if I don't like regulate my voice at that point, then he has permission to leave the room to calm down. And I won't take that as abandonment or anything. I'll just understand like the way I'm speaking is triggering to him. He needs to go calm down, and that is totally acceptable. And we have a formula where he goes calm down and he doesn't slam the door. He just goes and he calms down. That's something we have to practice over time. And then once he's calm, we come back and the repair mechanism is we use some humor or we say something nice to each other. But that's obviously specific to the person. We know that words of affirmation is helpful to us. Humor is helpful to us, but like finding, maybe asking your partner, what's something I did that kind of helped repair?
I
I
find for
really
me, like,
appreciate, oh, sorry, Mike, I'm going to cut you off just for the sake of time. Because I want to make sure that if Linji wants to answer this question, we have time to. And I have one more question after that. But I did want to say, Anne-Marie, I really appreciate that you said in there that it takes practice. It's not something where you guys discuss, okay, you just take space if you need to, and that'll work, right? Like it takes practice, it takes intention for it to become something that you do a little bit more naturally. And I really appreciate that you said that. Um,
Yeah. Okay. So, while we were both thinking while Emery and Mike were talking, I don't think nothing came up for the first part of that question for us, but the repair we can certainly talk to. So, repair mechanism. So, although we don't use it too much, well, I'll say it this way. Nivischi uses it more, but we have a journal, right? So, but the way we use it is like when we have a fight or disagreement, I should say, you can write in the journal, and then it's the other person's time to read the journal and write back to that person, right? Or, that's how it's supposed to go. So I have found that I use the journal when it's like things are bad, Nivischi is more using the journal like kind of regularly, more, it's like, hey, this is a great day, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, when I need to apologize, or if we had a really just a disagreement over things. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is just going to counseling, couples counseling. We do that a lot too. We believe in the power of that. So that's our answer to that question.
Thanks. So speaking of couples counseling, I wanted to send a question over, Cheryl, your way as we get close to wrapping up. I think both of our couples tonight have shared a lot of tips and tools that you've used. But Cheryl, I was wondering, are there specific tools or frameworks that help with co-regulation and communication in neurodiverse families?
The short answer is yes. And I say it that way because I think communication is such a big thing that when it's not working, couples get really overwhelmed and feel like it becomes hopeless. So I just want to say, I think just hearing, it's very exciting to me to hear from both of our couples tonight what's worked. So it's not even so much landing on a particular tool. You heard different things. It's what's going to work for you, which is what I'd like to take home to be. That I know when I work with couples, you will usually say, what are the things you want to work on? Where do you think the pain points are, or the misalignments? How would you like to see it be better? And then we try to craft something that works for them. So, journaling might work for one person. For somebody who doesn't like to journal, that's going to be painful. Mike, for you, it really worked looking at energy auditing, emotional energy auditing, and coming up with looking at the end of the day, or even the beginning of the day, how much you're starting out with in your bank and how much you're ending with at the end of the day. With others, it's checking in and being able to communicate with your partner where you are in terms of emotional regulation. So if you're not feeling really regulated, that's not the best time to bring up, my parents are coming next weekend, and we have to make these big decisions about something now. So some of the specific tools is definitely checking in. There are a series of articles, and we can share the link that Grace Myhill has done just on making meaningful connections during the day. And Amanda, you talked about the importance of this, and she's got some really nice tips about how do you check in and stay connected during the day. So little tips for the morning, for the afternoon and evening, different times of day, different vibration, different amount of available energy. So staying connected with your partner, and it really is sort of like using all these tools the same way as we have insurance, right? We pay a lot of money every year, I think, for homeowners insurance and auto insurance. And we think we never use it. We hope we're not going to use it, because if we are, it means we've had maybe like a catastrophic event. So before you have the meltdowns, before you're dealing with a shutdown or a situation where there's really a lot of anger and resentment, start building some tools in your arsenal so that you never let it get to that point. So that's maybe not as specific as you would like, but one is staying connected during the day, developing tools, looking at ways that you can start to express what you need. Mike, I loved how you said, this is triggering for me, please don't. That's so important. And the other side of the coin is that might be, I want to talk to you about something. Is this a good time for you? And to be able to let your partner have permission to say, no, it's not. I'm not ready for that. Or the other one that I like is a timeout. And this is a really specific one that I think is really important. Some people process information quickly. Some people need more time. And sometimes when a partner says, I don't know, whether it's what topping do you want on your pizza or how much do you want to budget for vacations, they're really saying, I can't answer that now. There's too much going on I'm thinking about. I need to get back to you, or I need more time. And I'll always say, just as long as you say, I can't answer that right now, but let's set another time this week. Let's set a time so it doesn't become an avoidant behavior, but one that allows that partner more time to process the information so that they can make an understanding. And then the last thing would be to make sure that you have a safe space so that somebody can say, I don't know, this is what I need, and not feel that they're going to be shamed or judged, because those are really the two, I think, real killers of any kind of communication and connectivity, is if one partner feels shamed or judged.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cheryl. And I know there are other questions in the chat, potentially for our couples or for myself and Cheryl. So I put my email in there, and Cheryl, if you are comfortable and want to put your email in there, you can. And if anyone has further questions for either of us or for the couples, you can send them via email to myself and Cheryl, and we can certainly pass them on to the couples if they feel like they want to respond, then they will. And if not, then we'll just let you know that, that they're unavailable, but we can pass along whatever answers or thoughts we have. As we wrap up, I just wanted to ask one final question really quickly. If either couples, Linje and Nivischi, Mike and Emory, if either of you guys wanted to share a short, quick example of a small win that felt really big for your relationship.
I feel like
while they're thinking about that, I just want to say I've copied all the questions that have not been answered in the chat. So I will send them out to you guys. And if you want to answer them, you can, and then we can send them out to people. So we have all the questions that weren't answered.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
I can add to the small win, but I don't want to interrupt you.
Go for
ahead. I'll go after you guys. Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll go after you guys.
She's gonna. So one small win that was actually felt like a big win was during a family vacation. Vacations are, as probably many neurodivergent families know, can be very difficult because you're outside of your routine, you're outside of your comfort zone, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, we had one family reunion vacation where we were visiting my family in a spot. And we worked with our counselor ahead of time because we knew Mike usually on these vacations would have some kind of a meltdown when we would get home to the apartment or to the hotel, because he was just so overstimulated by everything. And he was just there for, like the full day. And so we worked with our counselor saying, okay, before the trip, plan out where Mike is going to go to get some alone time that day. So let's say there's a Starbucks nearby, or whatever. So we'd already know the location he could go. And it was like, so then I would say, Mike, tomorrow's Wednesday. These are the family plans. You can join whatever you want. I can handle the kids on times that you need a break. And, you can go to this Starbucks if you're feeling like overstimulated by it all and you need a break. So for us, it was a huge win to have a plan in place and feel like somewhat in control of what felt like a chaotic situation. So that was a huge win for us, working with the therapist on a plan. It's like this happens every time. We know he's going to get overwhelmed. So this time we're going to be prepared for it. So that was a small win that felt like a big win.
I was thinking of just since the newborn stuff came up, I remember when I was like home, our son was like 2 weeks old, and I was like, hey, you're not doing anything today. I'm not doing anything. I was like, just put the baby in the car. Let's go to a winery. And so like I have this picture. We both got our sunglasses on, baby's here, and then like he was so relaxed. It was like a blowout diaper, and it was like everyone's relaxed. We're having a great time.
Very cute, Mike. I'm sorry to cut you off. I want to make sure that Linje and Nivischi get to share their small win, but I love that. That's very cute.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of like a hack. So a hack that I discovered, right? So for me, the small thing is, I may well the thing I'm referring to is so we have a newborn. Newborns generate a lot of diapers. We put diapers in diaper pails. Diaper pails smell horrible after a while. So I have this new rule of when the kitchen trash gets full, take out the diaper pail, instead of taking the diaper pail out once a week or whatever after some longer time period, right? So it works. It's small, but it works for me because it gives me a nice rule I can follow. I'm just, hey, it's like easy to remember. It's something that, doesn't, I don't forget easily. And then the Vichy's Nivischi's happier because she doesn't have to deal with the horrible smell, emanating from the corner everywhere or from wherever these diaper pills are. So that's a very small thing that kind of works for us, kind of like works to our strengths, That's kind of what we say like strength based. So anyway, that's my small example.
Thank you so much for sharing. And the reason I wanted to end on that is because we talk a lot about the fact that we do take a strength-based approach. You guys wouldn't be together if you didn't have lots of strengths and abilities to kind of do things together and connect with each other. And so it's really nice, to not neglect the challenges, but to really think about how do we utilize the strengths that each of us have in order to build the strongest type of relationship. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Cheryl. And I will pass it off to Michael.
Okay, well, I just want to thank all of you for this. It was so informative, and everyone really appreciates how vulnerable y'all were, really sharing your life experiences so that we can all benefit from that and help other people, and kind of use your experiences and get those little tips and say, this has worked for other people, and try this, that. So we appreciate all of that. Thank you so much. And again, we appreciate everyone giving your time on Tuesday night for this, and especially our couples. I know it's hard, especially when you have young kids, to give up time. We appreciate you. Thank you, and everyone have a good night.